to the first of our alumni panel series. So we will be here each Wednesday for the month of February, covering different career topics each week. And this is part of our programme of events, bespoke career events for students in the College of Arts and Humanities and the College of Social Sciences and Law. My name is Michelle Cohen and I'm a career and skills consultant here in UCD Careers Network. And joining me today is my colleague Leona Barry, and Leona is the career and skills consultant for the College of Social Sciences and Law. And we're delighted to have Sree Sen here today. Sree is our graduate from the School of English Drama and Film and completed her MA in creative writing in 2020. So delighted to have Sree here to share her experience. And in a moment, we'll be getting started in our conversation with Sree. But I just wanted to take a moment just to tell you a little bit about the Alumni Panel Series, as it's our first session. So today, obviously, we're looking at careers in the creative arts. So looking at, Shree's going to be telling us all about her career as a writer and freelance journalist. And we're interested to hear about her. She was the recipient of the Maeve Binchy Travel Award. So how that process and how she came about to be awarded that. Next week then we'll be looking at, so next Wednesday at 3 o'clock, we'll be looking at careers in media and publishing. And we have Amanda Coakley and Anna Joyce joining us. And between them, they've compiled a whole range of experiences across the Irish Times, the New York Times, Vogue, Channel 4, BBC and RTE. So we'll be looking forward to hearing their experiences since they've graduated from UCD. And then the following week, the Wednesday the 16th, we'll have careers in marketing, PR and advertising. Again, we'll have some graduates joining us to tell us about their experiences. And finally then, on the 23rd of February, we'll have a panel featuring careers in government and public sector. So hopefully something of interest for everybody and a great opportunity to learn about the array of careers available to students from Newman. And maybe I'll also just take this opportunity while I have an audience to tell you as well about the Skills for Working Life programme that is starting tomorrow evening, again online at 5 o'clock. And that's an 8-week programme featuring different employers each week who are covering lots of career-related topics. So we have, for example, RTE, Accenture, Qualtrics, and you can find all the details about that programme on Careers Connect or My Career. So I would say take a look at that, and its registration is open until the 10th of February, so plenty of time left yet. Okay, so let's get our conversation started. So I suppose, firstly, I would say that this is your session. So all our audience today, you are more than welcome to ask any questions at all. So there's no silly question. So what we'll do is we'll kick off and we'll have a little chat to Sree about her, her career path, her time in UCD, her current role. But I would really invite you to use this opportunity to tap into Shree's knowledge and experience and ask some questions. So you can type into the Q&A box. And my lovely colleague Leona will be taking a look at the questions as they come in, and we'll be checking in with Leona as we go along. So really use it as an opportunity to learn. If you're interested in getting into kind of writing and media, do take this opportunity to hear from Sree and all the great advice and experience that she can share. So Sree, I know that you are currently working as a digital content specialist with Skian Press, but that's just one of your roles, because I know you're also a published writer. So you've published a book of short stories. Exciting news that you have a book of poetry coming out, will be published in August. But also a distinguished career of almost 12 years as a journalist as well, back in India before you came here. So maybe if we start after your undergrad, and maybe tell us a little bit about getting started in that kind of graduate role, because it's similar to our own graduates here in UCD, just looking to get that foot in the door. So was it an internship or a graduate role for you?
Thank you, Michelle. It's really nice to be here and chatting with you. And hello, Leonard. Thanks for joining us. So if I did my undergraduation in English literature back in India, and one of my minor subjects was journalism. So it happened one day that they took the entire class to a printing press, which is kind of outdated now, isn't it? But they took us there to show us how the newsroom works and how the printing works and everything. So we were encouraged to go around and ask questions, and we did. And eventually I exchanged contact information, and then I got in touch with somebody after that. And I started actually working from my second year in undergraduation. I had an interest in music at that point of time, so I would do reviews and weekly chartbuster lists. So that's how I started, and eventually it just, you know how it happens, it propels you into a career. And I just went from there. So I did print journalism, then I went on to digital, and my final stint was in TV. So it's I think the greatest learning curve for me was the different formats of writing. If you're talking of writing as a discipline in the creative arts, I think that gave me the greatest exposure, because, you know, writing an article for a newsprint versus an online versus a TV script. These are three very different types of skill sets. And I was lucky in that way that, you know, my profession sort of introduced me to those and pushed me to continue writing in different formats. And I think that is how I sustained my career over 10 years, because, you know, when you keep upskilling, you're energized, you're more interested, you're more curious, you tend to learn more. And so when I decided to, you know, take a break from journalism and study something further, I really wanted to do creative writing, because that was one aspect of writing that I hadn't explored yet. So that's how in 2018, I did my application for UCD, and 2019, I got the acceptance and I came here.
Brilliant. Okay, no, that sounds really good. So if I'm hearing you correctly, it was that interest in music, and using that interest then to write some articles, even when you were in university, that helped you kind of get that exposure. So that's probably something useful for our audience to even think at this stage. You know, is there any topics that they would be interested in writing, and kind of develop your writing skills that way? The University Observer here are often looking for content, so it'd be a great way to get experience. Very good. So that kind of, for you, opened the door to then other roles, and you were able to work. Yeah.
And other forms of writing. So eventually, I think it is okay also when your field of focus shifts, because towards the end, I was more focused on doing gender-based stories and human interest stories. So I went through a lot of phases to reach to that point. And, you know, the most important thing, I believe, like you said, is to have an interest from which you can dig deep and write something substantial, like, you know, something that makes you stand apart. Yes. Something that says that, okay, she or he or them, they have an interest in what they're writing about. So it has to come out in that sense, which is, I think, the most important part. That's how you tend to get noticed.
Okay, very good. And you moved in that decade between print, digital and TV. And can you tell us a little bit more about that? What did you enjoy about each, and what were the challenges? Because again, our audience might be thinking, you know, what area they'd like to get into.
Oh, that's very interesting. I mean, all three fields have their different points of pros and cons. Say, for instance, newsprint, okay, you will be actually given a word count. Say you have to write your piece by within 300 words, or maybe 350, or even 150 if you have one single column, right? So you have to train yourself to think very precisely. So, you know, it's a great skill to have, in the sense that it helps you with clarity of thought. It helps you with the discipline of writing, and it also helps you to manage your project, you know, because you might be reporting on something which might ultimately result into 3 different pieces. So you can manage that project into 3 different pieces of maybe three different word counts. So it's a great discipline to develop in the newspaper industry, because then you are tasked with certain things and you have to meet them. You have to meet not only the deadlines, but you have to meet the editorial demands. Okay. So that's great with the newsprint. But the other aspect is you often feel like you have done injustice to a topic that you're really, you know, passionate about. So something that I'm recently working on is human trafficking, which I did a very, very long time back when I had initially started reporting. But at that point of time, I felt that just an anchor article, or maybe a minor piece, did more injustice to it than maybe, you know, a larger paper could have done. So that's one of the pros and cons. With digital, I would say digital is something we're all familiar with. So it's easier, because nowadays we are all reading articles online. We know the tone, we know the style, we know the format. So it's a very familiar medium to write on. The only con, I would say, is once you get into the industry, you realize that a lot of it is driven by keywords and SEOs and a lot of technical things that might feel to you redundant as a journalist, but is extremely important as a digital journalist. TV is like, writing TV script is a very, very different format altogether. So you have to write a script in probably 30 words or 50 words, which is like a para, right? And you have different formats for it. You have to allow for the TV packages, basically a segment of TV, right? So you have different slugs, different definitions, different tags to how you write it. So that writing a TV script is a completely different formula. So
yeah, well, that's brilliant, Sree. I think you've given us an insight into the tree and your take, and I loved that about, you know, that precise, you know, that precision around, like, you know, you could have a romanticized idea that you'll be writing an article of 2,000 words, but I mean, you might get an instruction from your editor, I need 300 words on this story, and then that precision to take it down, that's really good. So that's something that students could kind of, a skill, honing that, that's really interesting. And then I suppose just the contrast with digital, and then, you know, as you said, the parts of the industry that comes in, the SEO and all of that, and TV. So very, very interesting. So it's probably worth maybe getting experience across all three, like you did, to kind of, is that something that you find in industry that people get involved in a lot of aspects at the start?
Oh yes, I think not at the start, because it's good to spend maybe a couple of years in a particular arm of the industry, so that you really know what the demands of it are, and then, you know, move to another division of it, so that you are carrying something with you to the next division that you are going to. Otherwise, you will start as a novice in every division, which I wouldn't really suggest as a career graph.
Yeah, very good. And so, Sree, alongside then your, your print and TV journalism career, you were always writing as well. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. I was writing, actually towards the end, I was also getting into designing and graphics. So, but yes, my primary role was writing and editing. So the first 7 years, maybe 5, 6 years, maybe, I was a writer as well as an editor.
Okay. And again, because we have some students joining us from, creative writing, can you tell us a little bit about, the process of obviously getting started, but right through to like getting published and the marketing of that book and, branding yourself as a writer, that'd be really interesting to hear about.
Okay. So I think I was lucky in that sense because, the profession that I chose kind of made me into the writer that I am today, because a lot of writing, creative writing, I have realized is just discipline. So you wake up in the morning and you write whether you want to or not. And that is what journalism did for me, because I had to do my job, whether, I was bored of grammar or not, I had to do it. So when I came into the writing program, I realized that because of my background, it was not as difficult for me to sit down at a table and come up with 5,000 words. It definitely wasn't great 5,000 words, but it was still a practice. You write 5,000, then you edit and you bring it down to 3,000, then you take a break and then you edit again and you bring it down to 1,000. But you need to begin somewhere. And for me, I think beginning that writing phase was slightly easier than a lot of classmates that I came across at that point of time. But more importantly, I think it was I came to university. I joined a course in creative writing primarily because I wanted to immerse myself in it. Because, for so long it was just facts and life, and it was salaries and meeting deadlines, that I needed to move away from that into somewhere which was completely unfamiliar for me, into a more rigorous academic environment.
Okay, very good.
So
so that's that's probably why you decided to come and do your MA, is it, just to give you that focus? And had you published your first book of short stories before you joined the MA, or was that during?
I did. Actually, I started writing. I put full-time work in 2017 because my grandfather had Parkinson's, and I was his primary caregiver. So I had quit work then, and I was at home, and I used to tell him stories when he couldn't sleep at night. And then once he passed away, I decided to take those notes and just convert them to some short stories. And while I was doing that, actually, that was also one of the reasons I realized that the art and the skill and the technique of writing an article is very different from writing a story. Mm-hmm. And I needed help in that field. So which is why, again, I applied for a master's and I came here. But excellent. Here, actually, the publishing industry is very different. So here, as a creative practitioner, I think my greatest exposure was through the professors in college. That was my first level of interaction. And then I think one of the best things about Ireland is that there are so many book readings and launches that happen, almost on a weekly or fortnightly basis, that you can actually go there. People are welcoming. So even if you're a student and you're sitting in the back, there will be somebody to talk to, or you can go up and you can, introduce yourself and you say that, I really like the launch. and the person will thank you, and you can get to have a conversation. Because as a student of creative writing, you already have a basis for that conversation. You know, you have a platform. It is just, it's so difficult for somebody. I think it's more difficult for a person like me who's come from another background to enter a field and, you know, introduce myself or approach somebody, because you're always a little held back. You know, you're always, you worry how that will be taken, because sometimes it can come across as too forward, maybe. But in a reading, in a public sphere, I think that is understood, that, you know, people will approach you. That's a great place to go and interact and see how you like that environment, see if that is the feature you want to have. You know, talk to the bookshops, people at bookshops, and the people who are launching, the people who are sitting there. And that's a great place to begin.
Brilliant, that's very good. And of course, here we have the Irish Writers Centre, we have the Irish Writers Festival, and they're always looking for volunteers. So that's another great way of networking and talking to people in the industry who can give you some insight and tips. So that's really great.
Also, now that you're talking about it, I remember there were a lot of places. I think the festivals, the literary festivals, they always keep looking for volunteers. And that would be a great place to begin and, you know, get some experience from.
Absolutely. You might get a mentor or somebody that'll help. So that's really great. So we might check in, because I do want to make sure that it's not me talking, it's you talking, the audience, and that you're taking this opportunity to ask. You know, we have a writer in the room and a journalist. So any questions that you have. So I might check in with Leona and see if we have some questions.
Yeah, hi Michelle, hi Sree, thanks. That's absolutely fantastic summary of your experience. So interesting. So we have a student, and as a student of politics, they were wondering, do you think moving into journalism and media, with that research background, is it a disadvantage while applying for internships?
Hi, thank you for that question. Your education is never a disadvantage when you want to join journalism, whatever background you come from, even if it's a science background. It's always great to have knowledge, because that is going to be your currency henceforth. And it is beneficial to correlate your education to a chosen field that you're going to write about, but it is not necessary. So if you are a student of political science and you still go ahead and say, I have an interest in rock music, and you come out with a brilliant blog piece, you will still be taken seriously. So it is your knowledge, whether you correlate it or not, it is how much interest you have and how much of it shows in your writing that is going to matter.
Very good. I hope that answers the question for that person. And I think in Ireland we've lots of current journalists and broadcasters from law, politics, from lots of different backgrounds. So I'd say certainly it's an ideal degree to have if you're really interested in journalism. So back to Leona.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Sree. That's a fantastic answer. And I totally agree, Michelle. Now, another student has asked, what are the limits and advantages as a journalist coming from a creative writing background? It's a very good question.
That's an interesting one.
Advantages, I will tackle that first. Because first is the discipline of writing. Like I said, you become so accustomed to sitting at your laptop and typing out words that, you know, you can do that and not get bogged down by word count, or not get bogged down by deadlines, because it's been a part of your profession. It also, like I said, clarity of thought, because creative writing to a large extent is exploring but also it is about communicating your internal thoughts, your workings. It's about going through the motion and trying to build a story out of it. So my craft as a journalist, my profession, and my skill of using words and grammar and punctuations and approachability actually helped me crafting stories and poetry, which were, let's just say, which came across in a way that I wanted it to come across as. So, I don't know whether this was clear. So if I have something to write about as a creative practitioner, let's say I want to write about writing in a bus, and I want to do it in a certain format. Maybe I want to do it in a sonnet, right? So my skill as a journalist will mean that for me to write 14 lines will come in an easier way, because I am already accustomed to making my thoughts and my passion clearer and more concise and precise in that sense. So this is just one aspect of it. But what I learned as my skill has always, and it is still till date, helping me out as a writer. So whether it is the article or a poem or a short story, the skill of writing doesn't disappear. It's always there. So that's one of the pros. The cons of it is it took me, I think, a very, very long time to move from thinking in terms of facts and interviews and the set forms of writing into a more experimental craft. For a very long time, I could not break those forms of writing that I was so used to, and it was comfortable for me to write in those formats. So for me to break those down, for me to experiment with lines and breaking of lines, so that took a long time for me.
Okay, wow, that's very interesting.
That's very good. It's that natural piece, that natural, comfortable way of doing things. It's a very interesting answer. Thanks, Sree. There's a few more questions coming in, actually, Michelle.
That's great. Yeah, we'll stay with the questions for a while.
Absolutely, and thank you so much, all of you that are adding these questions in. So there's another question. Is the Irish writing landscape welcoming to somebody who is foreign to the country?
Yes, it is. So I would suggest that if you are a student, or if you just want to try your hand at creative pieces, the first thing to do would be to send in your poem or your short story to reviews and magazines, which are Ireland based. So you will see, first thing, which is quite important here, is the entire literary scene sort of coexists on Twitter. So as you don't have to be an active participant, if you don't like Twitter, you can just join it and keep yourself inactive. You don't need to post, but it is best to follow the handles of, say, Poetry Ireland, Arts Council of Ireland, Irish Writers Centre, Words Ireland, because they keep regularly posting about, okay, this magazine has their submission window open. So you can go to their website, you can check the details, the submission details, and just send out your pieces. At the most, it's going to be rejected, but more you send out, the more feedback you do, you start curating your submissions. The more you curate, eventually it's going to be ready. It's going to be accepted. So the best part would be to start sending those in reviews, magazines. If you're not very confident, then do not send for competitions, because most of them are paid competitions. So only when you know positively, okay, I'm very happy with this piece, I can't edit it anymore. Sure, go ahead, submit for your competitions. And once you start, so there will be certain factors, I think, which are very important to sending these submissions is you need to have a bio, which is very important for all creative practitioners, whether you are getting into theater or creative writing or music, you need to have a bio about yourself. And if you have any pieces published, you need to keep those links with you. So if somebody asks you, okay, have you already, most of the reviews and places that you submit to, they are okay with you being first time submitters. So they are not looking at your previous publishing history. But if you are looking to send it to maybe an internship application, then you will need to have a record of your publishing. So your bio, a record of your publishing if you have any, but if you don't, that's not a place to worry about. And B, most of the applications, aside from literary submissions, they will require maybe a letter of intent or just a write-up about why you want the opportunity that you're applying for. So it's a great idea, I think, to sit and do those and format it and reformat it now rather than a day before the deadline. So yes, the Irish literary field is very open to submissions from first-time authors, but it has to be a well-edited, well-worked-on submission.
That's brilliant. That's fantastic. So I was taking notes myself there, like, so the current student, get on Twitter and start following all the handles that you mentioned. That way you're up to date on all these competitions. And then, you know, when you're happy and confident after all your edits to submit, and you can start to build up a portfolio for yourself. I see some of those competitions even in the Irish Times, and you can get published, and sometimes there's even a small financial award or something like that. And that's excellent. That's really great. So it seems that having the bio, Sree, you mentioned that a few times. So a little bit about yourself is really important. So very good. That's super advice. Pages and notes from this. So sorry, Leona, back to you.
Thanks, Sree. Thanks, Michelle. No, absolutely. Thanks for summarising that piece as well. It's very interesting. And I think our next question kind of relates somewhat to what you were saying. That, but I'm interested in writing for television. But I'm not too sure how to get started. How would I get hired in that position?
Okay, if you want to work with television, so to break your bubble, sorry, but you don't start off immediately as a writer. So different organizations have different formats, different designations for when you join. So if you join as an intern, that is definitely one of the best ways to get an entry into the work culture, into the different forms of positions in work profiles that are available. So you have, at least for me in India, there used to be a head writer, there used to be a junior writer, there used to be an editor, and different, it would take a village to make a TV program. So, you know, it's, I think this is one of the greatest injustice that we have done to the industry, is we have put everything under an umbrella, whereas a lot of work, if that goes into TV production, is interconnected. It is, you know, there is a lot of overlap. So it would be best to join them as an intern or as a trainee, and, you know, just see what suits you the best and take it from there. Eventually, you might go in and realize that screenwriting is better than TV writing, which is again two very different things. So it's great to first have that exposure at the lowest level, so that, you know, you can move on from there.
Okay, so Sree, you would say look for kind of internship or like roles as a runner or something like that to get your foot in the door, get exposure, maybe meet the writing team and see if there's any opportunity, like, you know, slowly like that you can't just apply and join the writing team straight off. Okay. Well, that's maybe good insight to know for someone.
Yes, and especially because UCD has so many different, you know, you have a radio show, you have a radio channel, and that's a great place to start, I would say. You know, join that team and see if you can write scripts for them and build it from there. Or, you know, there are so many things to do. You can have a mobile video or mobile film, short film of 5 minutes, and you can say, okay, this is the script that I have done. And, you know, if you want to get your foot in that door, even if you want that internship or the traineeship to choose you would still need a portfolio. If not a professional portfolio of 15 works, but you will need a portfolio of maybe 2 works, and show that, okay, this is just not an interest. I have invested my time and energy into this, which is why I deserve that internship.
Very good. So it's all about the hustle.
Yes.
Very much, Sree. Yeah, Michelle, there's actually just a question in relation to the recording of this. So this conversation today will be recorded. Yeah.
It'll be available on the UCD Careers Network YouTube channel, but also we'll get it up on My Career. And if you want, it'll probably take just a few weeks with editing. So if that person wants to drop us an email and get the recording sooner, that's no problem. I seen that message. Someone mentioned they had trouble accessing, so that's no problem. Okay, well, maybe we'll take a break from questions. You can have a little think about if there's anything else that you want to ask. But also, Sree, see, there's so much to ask you about, but it'd be interesting to hear a little bit about your experience of the MA, because we might have some undergrads who are thinking of doing that MA. What did you enjoy about it? What was challenging? And maybe tell us a little bit about the award of the Maeve Benchley Travel Award, how you heard about it, what was the application process?
Okay, I think the MA program is a great place to build your portfolio, basically, because, you know, you are doing, it's a creative writing focused year, and you are writing constantly. So by the time you come out of your MA, you actually have the basis for a lot of work that you can develop. And the best part is you get creative feedback from people who are within the industry, from professors and writers who are currently within the industry, and they are academics. So it's a great blend of practicality with, you know, your academic spirit. So it's a great place, I would say, to take this 1 year and study the masters, and in a way build your own self-confidence as a writer. Because creative writing is a very lonely art. You don't have a boss coming and telling you good job or, you know, well done. Nobody says that, right? And once you start making these applications or sending it out to reviews and magazines, you get so many negative feedback repeatedly over and over again that it tends to pull you down. So being among fellow sufferers and being among professors who are constantly helping you up, keeping your spirits high, you know, telling you good things about your writing, I think that is very important to have in your life. Also, that MA for students like me who's coming from outside the country, it was a great entry into the industry, because I had a mix of people from other countries as well as Irish students who already knew the places that you go to, the bookshops that the readings are held in, and, you know, you can always tag along with your friends, and, you know, because even today, after 1.5 years of graduating from UCD, the poetry group that we had in UCD that was formed because of a workshop, we still workshop after 1.5 years. We still get together on Wednesdays sit with each other, exchange notes, read poetry, write poetry, keep that momentum going. So in a way, I would suggest that doing MA was one of the smartest decisions I made in my life. So that is there. Otherwise, again, talking from an outsider's point of view, an MA gives you, in a visa way, it gives you 2 years of job search visa, which means that you have ample time to do your internship and your traineeship or do a part-time work and figure out whether you want to take this ahead long-term or not.
Yeah.
So,
so it sounds like the MA, great. You've this community of writers that come together, and that network then continues on, because as you said, it's maybe a solitary role, so having that network is fantastic. And then I suppose that discipline of writing for a year, and you build your portfolio. So that sounds excellent. And then was the writing, the Traveller Award, was that promoted in the MA then?
So the Traveller Award, actually, it came as one of those emails from the university. I don't really recall from which particular email, but it was a department email, I think, that our professor had forwarded to the entire class. And I think only 2 of us actually really applied for it. I don't think anybody else did. Yes. I think it went across to all the departments of arts and humanities. I know this year it did. So and funding application is going to be a major part of your life if you want to be a freelancer, because then you're going to apply for funds with the Arts Council or with other universities or within your own universities. So the UCD Maeve Binchy Travel Award was fantastic in the sense that it encouraged the marriage between journalism and creative writing because of Maeve Binchy's own background, so I was very excited about it. And the proposal I did submit was actually the human trafficking work that I am doing right now, the research that I'm doing, and to build a novel out of it, a fictional novel out of it. And that was the research that I put into the application. So there was a letter of intent which says that, this is the award, this is the criteria, what is your intent, and how do you fit into the criteria that has been mentioned. So I would suggest any competition or any application that anybody is making, first thing to do is to really, really read the criteria, the job description, any details that has been mentioned, and to curate your answer accordingly, because otherwise it will just read as any, like somebody has made one cover letter and just copy pasted it into it, and it shows. So the best would be to, so that's what I did. I read what they were looking for, and I said that, okay, this is my project, and this is how this project fits into your criteria. And this is why I am a good candidate to be given the award. So my project, how it fits into the criteria, and how my background sort of enhances my chances of getting that award. So that was my letter of intent. Next came the actual, so they asked for a written proposal. I think it was 500 words, yes. So the written proposal was something that I had written in class. Like I said, I was already researching about it. So I had written in class, it had been workshops. Then I sat down, I took those feedback, I edited it, I re-edited it. And then when I was happy with it, I submitted that. And the final document that they required was your academic CV. So anybody who's not from an academic background, the professional CV and the academic CV is quite different. So it's best to research that and figure out what the format for an academic CV is, and then put it in. Because people who go through admission, or people who go through applications, sorry, they have a very fast eye. and they can just, you know, speed read and realize what is valid and what is not valid. So your application should not be invalidated because you didn't do basic research.
Yeah, absolutely. So like that's great insight for anyone who's looking at that award or something similar. And just when you mentioned, you know, about bio and, you know, I suppose that promotion of yourself, like when we were looking up your profile, that's what was coming up about you, and it was like fantastic as an introduction to you, and to see your picture with, it was Maeve Benchy's husband getting the award and everything.
Benchy.
Yeah.
Oh yes, oh yes. Oh, he was amazing.
Yeah, so it's brilliant. So like it's a great way of course the award itself is fantastic and it helps your profile, and then you have this fund that helps support your writing as well. So that's great. I believe you'll be planning a trip maybe to help with your novel, so that'll be, we'll definitely be looking forward to that publication.
Yes.
But again, there's so much to see we can talk to you about, and I'm very conscious of the time, but again, going back to making sure that the students get the most out of this, I want to check in with Leona as well for any questions. And guys, please, you know, again, type into chat. We're happy to take any questions. So I'll check in with Leona.
That's great. Yeah, thanks, Michelle. It's in the Q&A. That's fantastic. They pop up here. So we have a really interesting question here. So the student was wondering, as a mature student, I'm studying drama and film for the internship. I wonder if I could do that at my age, and they have disclosed that lovely age, and it is 53. So there we go. Nice and young.
Absolutely, very young. So I don't think age in the creative field, age makes much difference. And I'm not saying this to make you happy, but it is just the practicality of it. So if you have the passion for it, definitely go ahead and take up an internship, apprenticeship, traineeship, and see how you get along with that. I think for in the theater field, and I'm sorry I don't have much experience there, but I would say in the creative writing field, one of my closest friends, she's of a similar age, but if you are enthusiastic and if you show that enthusiasm, people will respond. As a reality check, I will tell you that there will be a lot of naysayers, there will be a lot of rejections, and it may not be specifically to do with your background or your education or who you are, but just generally that they don't have the space to take on any new people at the moment. But a rejection is always a rejection, it always hurts. So I would suggest that you know, build a support network, build a group of friends, family members, anybody who's there, who is within the industry, who knows how the industry works, who's like an extension of you, so that when things are bad, you have somebody to talk to, and when things are good, you have somebody to celebrate with. For me, for my friend as well, in the creative field, as like I am doing a part-time job, and that came out because of newsletters that I was doing on my own on my website, and just you know, a few people had registered for it, and then one of the readers came back saying that, hey, I really like your newsletter, so would you do our digital content? And this was how I started working with Screen Press. So if you're passionate about theater and writing for theater, go ahead, put your writing out there, see what people say, what the feedback is. Before I joined Screen Press, I think I have some 50 rejections in my inbox. So, you know, it's best to risk it and put yourself out there.
Very good. And if that student, you know, wants to even have a one-to-one like a brainstorming with either myself or Leona or any of our colleagues in the Careers Network, you know, in terms of how to approach an internship or anything like that, we're happy to help, and you can book a one-to-one anytime. But that's really good advice as well, Sree. So, and I'll just check, is there anything else coming in, Leona, at the moment?
There's one more question there. Thanks, Sree. Do you think a part-time master's in creative writing would be as valuable as the full-time master's?
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yes, I do. Because at the end of the day, creative writing, for me, it was more about the environment and the rigorous practice of it, but for you, it might be about the skill of it. So if you want to do a 2 years part-time course and develop your skill and technique of writing, you're welcome to do so. Since creative writing is such a personal study, I guess it all depends on what you really want out of that program. And the longer association that you have with your professors, the longer time that you spend in universities. And, you know, if I had a chance to spend 2 years with UCD, I would have done it. So, yes.
Very good. Okay, and is that
there's one there, but very much, yeah, absolutely. So thank you in relation to that opportunity to meet to discuss on a one-to-one, Michelle. So thank you.
Super. Okay. Well, I am conscious of time because we have some students who might be needing to jump off to go to another lecture. So Wednesday is a busy day, but like you've shared so much, Sree, like there's so many tips there, and you were so thoughtful and considerate in your advice. It was really, really great. And I suppose, you know, if you had a kind of a closing for current students, I know you said, you know, the competitions, and I suppose maybe the message that I'm getting certainly is around that discipline and maybe continuing to practice and hone your skills and utilize your time in university, because there's so many societies, and like you mentioned, Belfield FM, and it's maybe picking one or two things that can help build up a portfolio. I suppose looking back, maybe reflect on your own career, is there anything else that you'd like to add just to a group of aspiring journalists and writers in the creative arts?
I guess the most important factor is to be really aware of what's going on in the industry. Like I said, Twitter will have, going to events will have, and you must be aware what resources are available and to make the best use of those resources that are available. So, and that honestly differs from people to people. So those are the two things that I would say that, you know, I really got out of my career.
Brilliant, very good. Well, it's a fantastic career, and it's only moving further and further up, and we look forward to the publication in August and continuing to watch your career with interest. It's always fantastic for myself and Leona in careers to see graduates and the great journeys that they go on after their time here. And also we really appreciate your time coming back, you know, to spend some time with the current students and talk to them a little bit. I suppose you mightn't realise how valuable it is, you know, in lecture theatres and in the space they're in now, to hear from graduated students about the great opportunities that are there. So